fast, we move to an engaging fireside chat. Joining us are two industry leaders, Mr. Vijay Kumar Thadani, Vice Chairman, Co-founder, and MD, NIIT Limited. Can we please have a big round of applause for him? Please join us. Also, I request Mr. Sunil Gupta, Co-founder, MD, and CEO, Yota Data Services. Together, they will explore the new frontiers of digital learning and data-driven enterprises. This promises to be an insightful and wonderful exchange of thoughts. Heartiest welcome. Let's get started. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. So, thank you very much for hosting us here. Oh. Yeah. It's my pleasure to have, I don't know whether Mr. Thadani needs any introduction. Just 2 days back, I was having a chat with him about this panel, and I told him that I used to be a youngster way back in 92, passed out of the college, and we used to look up to NIT to give computer education to people like us. And Mr. Thadani was the founder of NIT at that time, right? So we are witnessing on stage a veteran from the industry. And sir, thank you for being here, sir. My question is, from the time when we used to talk about in our colleges mainframes shifted to personal computers shifted to local area networks, wide area networks, and then we had internet. Today the internet actually is again getting, you have got a layer of AI coming on the top of that in every walk of life. So how do you see the role of education, specifically computer and digital education, what it was at that time, how it is today, how digital and AI is changing the way education is delivered, and how actually the whole thing is panning out to be in the context of that the population of India at one time was taken to be a bane of India, and today it is taken as a boon of India in the form of what we call as a demographic dividend, because that is something which possibly will lead us to a Viksit Bharat. How do you see, sir, this whole change? Just take us through this journey, sir.
Okay. Do I have to do anything, or I'm okay? I'm on. All right. So, talking about the whole journey, which is 43 years,
Yeah.
and thanks for mentioning that we made our modest contribution for training people. We just counted last year. That number is 43 million, as the luck will be. Many of the school children that we trained are now decision makers. So the number of people that we have touched is about 1.5 times the country of Australia, a couple of Singapores,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. However, I think the more important thing to see is how has education and technology. So there are two issues. One is technology education, and the second is education in technology.
Yeah.
Technology education is what some of you, all of us experienced, and that we talk about. But I thought more important thing to see, like Dr. Sharma was talking about, how the educational infrastructure can be influenced by technology.
Yeah.
And here I think the one comment I would like to make is that the problem is not with technology. The problem is with the educational system. Educational system, you know the good old blackboard chalk method. What is your best guess? How long has it been around?
Maybe 300-400 years.
Okay, 250 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, last known.
Yeah.
Now imagine 250 years, every morning one teacher lines up in the class, there is a class of 50 people sit down, she starts writing on the board, you see his backside more than his front side, and something gets taught, you take notes, and you appear in the exam. That system took the longest to change. We were born in 80s. We were all lucky to be around when in 80s the personal computer came. And the first resistance that we saw, we started using very quickly, but the first resistance we saw was from the teachers, from administrators, because they had many, many issues which was to do with technology. So I'll fast forward that. We tried various ways, but it was a hesitant application of technology. Some back office use, some little bit of learning from computers, computer-based training, then that became web-based training, e-learning, all that. But I would call that a very low range utilization. So I call that the BC area, the before COVID area. Right? So in the before COVID era, technology was all present, available. However, education was very hesitant to use it. And many reasons. And I'm not saying good or bad, I'm a product of that system. I'm sure we had good reasons. Come COVID, and overnight, the situation changed. So I call that the pre-COVID area, or before COVID area, I call it the maybe digital area, right? Maybe digital. Maybe digital will have a role to play. The day COVID shutdown happened and the schools closed, colleges closed, it became the digital first era. That's the first time the word digital first started appearing in people's vocabulary.
Yeah.
And in digital first, people realized that the principles for which the educational system of the country was struggling with, which was equity, access, quality,
Yeah.
and flexibility, of that, equity and access at least were looked after.
Yeah.
You could now, we actually said you can learn from the same IIT professor who taught me in Jharkhand as you can do it in Delhi.
Yeah.
But I don't think people understood that maybe it was difficult for me also to learn from that teacher, but for the poor guy in Jharkhand, that was too much.
Yeah.
So quality started suffering. Therefore, when the COVID happened, the system changed to digital first, but hybrid, saying there is a little bit of human intervention required.
Yeah.
And I think as we are struggling with that, finding that balance in the post-COVID era, comes AI.
Yeah.
Okay, November 23, life changed.
Yeah.
As if nobody knew about AI before that.
Right.
You all knew about
Yeah,
it
yeah.
much before that.
Yeah.
But on that day, people saw that it is actually possible for a layperson to interact with technology.
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And then one thing led to the other. And therefore, we started having what I call that era, the AI promise era.
Yeah.
AI's promise is visible. But what we have done is once again what we did with the digital technologies.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody is setting question papers. And by the way, who adopted this technology first? Not the professors,
Right.
not the teachers, not the administrators, not the policymakers. People who used it were students.
Right.
They started submitting their assignments and essays
Yes.
using ChatGPT. And the instant response was ban ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There are universities and colleges known to have said, sorry, you will not use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You will be banned usage of that. Our university, we have a university, an IIT university, our professors said, not because they wanted to say, but we all discussed and said, maybe the better thing for you is to say use ChatGPT,
Yeah.
right? But you use this person's output and that person will critique it.
Yeah.
And then the learning will improve.
Yes.
And suddenly people started saying that there is a utilization of that. So as we stand, though we have moved further, but I would say we are at this point of time in the promise of AI in education. The education in AI,
Yeah.
that is given.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to say later or even now I can say that. Fluency in AI is the new definition of literacy.
Yeah.
We used to say first, you are being able to write your own name used to be literacy. Then we said, forget that. As long as you can operate on a keyboard, that's literacy.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying a fluency in AI is the new definition of literacy. Let me take a pause so
Yeah,
that
sure,
you
sure.
can also think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe I should ask you, since we are talking about AI.
Yeah.
Now, why AI is happening? Why AI is happening is one, what we see elsewhere in the world.
Yes.
And I just told you, first of all, I didn't know what yotta meant.
Okay.
I'm ashamed to be an engineer. 10 to the power of 24.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
I can't even imagine that number. Okay. Then I went to your website. I was very impressed. I was extremely impressed that right in our own neighborhood, we have a center which is AI driven, which is world class, GPU intense, absolutely fault tolerant proof, tier 4. Tier 4 is what? 99.99.
Five nines,
Five
essentially
nines.
fault tolerant. Nothing
Yeah.
can make it fail, basically.
Yeah, nothing can make it fail.
Yeah.
And that would be some downtime of some 20 odd minutes or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
such thing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
If that is happening, how will the life of our students change? So I want to ask you,
Yeah.
what do you think the technology infrastructure has in store for us to take this journey of right now promise of education to an AI first nation?
Yeah.
To an India first AI nation, because then the language complication adds its own complication. So maybe that.
Sir, continuing with what you were saying, I think the focus of education has always been and should always been on content curriculum, which is the real education. But in the current context, and also in the context of India, where we are talking about 1.4 billion people, the very young population which is actually into tier 2, tier 3 cities may not be very conversant in English. If we really want to educate all of them, and we want to align education as per their own way of learning, maybe personalized learning in their own language, or maybe if they cannot read, can be voice driven also. If we really want to go to nooks and corners of the people, the country, and actually educate all of those people, besides the curriculum and content, what becomes important in today's context is compute, connectivity, and also AI. Compute means you can deliver that education in a digital way. You can reach out to people, as you said, into Jharkhand also, and not only in Delhi. Connectivity, of course, I think Mr. Sharma has spoken so much about, how connectivity has changed the life for India, so you can deliver education to wherever you are. And of course, AI, because it is able to make the thing personalized. Education can be as per your own speed of learning, in your own way and or context of learning. So that is something which has become important. And as you said, one is that AI in education, and one is that education of AI. Both of them are important. What we did, sir, frankly speaking, as you said, while AI, we all are talking about AI from 1950s onward, it's originated then, but because AI came into the consumer hand in like 23, suddenly everybody started realizing the benefits of AI. You and me were able to just put some prompt on ChatGPT, and suddenly we saw great benefits, right? What got realized, sir, at that time in India, that while India has got a great startup ecosystem, great skill set ecosystem, we know the way of learning everything. We have startup, we have mobile phones, 5G, everything what we have. What we don't have is infrastructure. Unless and until we create abundance of compute infrastructure in India, we really cannot have whether AI-driven use cases for the whole country, or whether even AI for students and universities. What we have done, sir, in the last 2 years is that we have, from a state of no GPUs, no compute, to a state today where we are talking about abundance of GPUs. That is what we have created. And sir, sometime in economics you say that if there is a demand, supply comes. But also the second thing also is true. If there is a latent demand, which is not visible, you bring supply available and the latent become visible demand. And I think that is what we did. We possibly saw the future demand coming in, that if US can be having such a big AI ecosystem, India with 4 times population, which is much more digitally enabled compared to US, why India will not grow maybe even bigger than US? The only thing lacking is compute, and that is what we have brought in. And second thing what we did, sir, as we know, Why UPI became successful or the whole DPI became successful? Because we are making it available to population in a very easy way, handy way, and free of cost, or very low cost, you can say. So in India, any and every business model, and I think you understand, sir, more than me, that any and every technological wave in India is successful when you are able to make lots of value to people at very low prices. That is how any business model has worked. We sometimes start calling it geo effect, sir. If that is what is the second thing what we had done, sir, because we brought in, the whole market started evolving, rate also has started coming down. India AI mission by government actually has further added to the hugely, in making that whole compute available to startups, universities, researchers. And today, sir, the situation is, just last late night, I was having a call with the officials and various stakeholders. I have been asked now, Sunil, you have already given 8,000 H100s. Can you make another 20,000, 40,000 B200s available, which is the latest Blackwell chips? That is the scale of AI development which is happening in India across research bodies, IITs, across startups, across enterprises. And I think, sir, if we are able to make it available, as I said now, at very low cost prices, usage based, every student should have an AI account. Every student, instead of waiting for a AI workstation in his college, just log in and the whole big GPU is available and you can able to quickly create a model, quickly create an app and have some benefit of that. I think that is what India required, and possibly we, in some way, we have contributed towards that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I noticed that your, what's that, NM1?
NM1,
Navi Mumbai.
Yeah.
It just struck me.
Yeah.
Navi Mumbai, your data center is 210 megawatts.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Why do I remember 210 megawatts? Because in my working life, the largest project I did was control instrumentation for a 210 megawatt thermal plant, which took 5 years to build.
Right.
And you would consume all of that
In a single building, sir.
in one
Single
place.
building, sir, right.
Yeah, I think that's that's the size of what you
Yeah,
have been able
sir.
to do.
Yeah,
That's I think something fantastic. And then you talked about the affordability, and I think what Dr. R. Sharma was talking about, UPI. If anybody says UPI will now cost 1 paisa per transaction, we'll have a civil war like Nepal in, in the country. Right?
Exactly, sir.
Even
Yeah.
1 paisa per transaction. So,
Sir, because you talked UPI, and I again, sir, kudos to everything which Mr. Shiva was talking
Absolutely.
about. We all can have, goosebumps when we talk about India's GPI, whole DPI and all. Sir, I saw a chart few days back where in most of the, like they were comparing various countries in the world, including US, UK, and various developed countries, and India was there, that what are the payment systems which are popular, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 across the world. Visa and MasterCard by default will appear number 1 and number 2 in any of the countries. In India, I think it is number 7 and number 8. Right?
Yeah.
Our UPI, our IMPS, our RuPay, these are the things which are ruling. And now they are going to almost 40 countries, sir. So, yes, sir.
in December, for Dr. Sharma's benefit, in December I went to Eiffel Tower. I took my granddaughter and I used UPI to pay for it. That was amazing.
Yeah, sir, asking one more question, sir. Sir, again, let's talk about the current geopolitical context. And I think we all are reading about it, ingesting it, trying to make sense out of that. I would say trade issues are being brought into geopolitical issues, or we can say vice versa, geopolitical issues are being brought into trade issues. Technology has become a weapon which is much bigger than conventional weapons. Any stoppage of access to any technology can play havoc to the whole personal or professional life of a country, sir. Given this situation, how do you see education as a huge enabler? Because government of India, our Prime Minister is continuously talking in this context, and not from today, for last 10 years, Make in India, Swadeshi movement. One is, it is economically beneficial, but also that it makes you sovereign. It allows you to determine your own destiny. In this context, sir, how do you see education playing a yeoman's role in enabling our students, our startups, our enterprises to really take us to the path towards the Viksit Bharat? Of course, by use of all these technologies like AI.
Okay, so let me attempt. So first of all, you mentioned demographic dividend. We used to talk about that and say it's either demographic dividend or demographic disaster.
Right.
Right? Depends on the path we took. Fortunately, we took the right path. But have we reached there? Not yet. We have a huge problem to solve. Despite our best efforts, and I must say, last 15, 20 years, I think we made phenomenal progress. Our gross enrollment ratio in higher education is at 28%, last published report. Must have increased by another 200 basis points, so it maybe 30%. That is half of where the so-called developed countries, we are also a developed country now, but so-called developed countries are at 60, 70%, which means only 1/3 of people who should go to college are going to college or are getting the benefit of higher education. So human capital is a major asset we have as a nation. And both figuratively as well as physically, it's an asset which appreciates.
Yep.
One, we cause appreciation by producing as many children as we do every year,
Yep.
which is reducing a little bit. But the second is how they appreciate in the value they provide. So human capital is the only asset anybody has which has a scope for appreciation. All other assets depreciate.
Yep.
So good news is we have the asset which appreciates.
Yep.
But we have to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Our reach itself is at 1/3. Human capital without education is a disaster.
Correct.
So first we have to make sure they receive education. But we also found out that 80% of our graduates are not worth anything. So therefore, education plus skills. So human capital plus education plus skills
Right.
is equal to a productive human.
Yep.
Add AI fluency to it.
Yep.
Then it is 10x productive person, which means you take a person, give him the right education, give him the right skills, and give him AI fluency, his productivity is equal to 10
Yep.
equivalents
Yep.
and more.
Yep.
Add to that innovation or an innovative thought process. We all understand Jugaad.
Yep.
Right? Jugaad can be loosely coined as innovation.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
actually.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shortcut.
Yeah.
Jugaad is putting matchsticks instead of a plug.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how we have seen guys who come to our houses to
Yeah.
grind floors and repair. That's not the right way to. We were to have structured innovation included in our. Then that is equal to new intellectual property, which is what you talked about,
Yep.
the startup
Yep.
system, which leads to job creators, not job consumers.
Yep.
Okay. That is the path which we have to take. What is the promise of AI? Promise of AI so far, even though I said whatever we have discussed, people are talking of saying, it used to take me 2 hours to prepare. I'm talking about a
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah.
It used to take me 2 hours to prepare. Now I can do it in 20 minutes. But that's just increasing efficiency. It used to take me 1 hour to write an essay. Now I can do it in 3 seconds.
Yep.
It's only increasing my efficiency. It's not improving my effectiveness.
Right.
Why I believe that AI can change this landscape dramatically, and we are experiencing that as we
Yeah.
practice it in our own company. AI can disrupt that model of 250-year-old model of education, not can, will, and is disrupting.
Yep.
That class of 30 people where the teacher did not know whom to teach, so therefore taught to the average of the class.
Yep.
Right? We all grew up
Yep.
where the teacher taught to the average of the class. The brilliant ones were getting bored,
Yep.
and the bad ones were struggling,
Yep.
going to tuition classes.
Yeah, exactly
Correct?
right.
And that's how we have such a huge tuition
ecosystem,
system,
right.
which in my opinion, it's my very personal view, and no offense meant to anybody from that industry, they are also making a role. But structurally, that's not who
Right.
we should be doing the first thing right first time.
Yeah.
rather than having to rework on it. AI has the promise of improving the effectiveness of education. So we have a project in NIT, which we are now practicing, which we call Class of One. Saying to every student in that cohort, it will appear that the training or education is being done only for that person. That person knows, or that AI engine knows who you are, what you can learn, what you have learned in the past, what you are capable of learning, what you struggle to, and therefore you like pictures, you like audio, you like written, you like graphics. It will automatically align itself.
Yeah.
And therefore, to you, the teacher is speaking only to you.
Yeah.
When you do this, then this whole concept of the pass rate in my class is 86% very proudly. The 14% can go to hell.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it means.
Right.
No, the pass rate will be 100%.
100%. Right.
The eligibility for coming into my institution is you must get 60% in everybody will get 100%
Yeah. Yeah.
by that logic.
Yeah. Yeah. But now it's
But 100% definition will change. 100% will not be how well you remember page 1 to 400 that you
Yeah.
went,
Yeah.
but how you are able to apply that in an innovative manner. That day starts happening, our human capital appreciate at an exponential rate.
Yeah.
I think the real promise of AI is to increase that effectiveness. Second thing, which is very late realization, I must say it's the last 4 months realization. In our country, education and skills have been two parallel systems, correct? You go to college for education, you come to NIT for skills,
right,
for
right,
example,
right.
You go, if you are brilliant, you go to college. If you are not brilliant or your parents can't afford it, then you go to ITI or diploma.
Right.
I'm saying, given the fact that the productivity of every teacher will increase, the effectiveness of every teacher will increase, and the fact that AI can create a personalized trainer, tutor, coach, whatever you may call him,
Yeah.
for you, why can't education and skills coexist in one institution?
Right.
So today, NEP, National New Education Policy, talks about saying higher education should, they say should, include skills education. Not necessarily, it should be part of that.
Yeah.
There is no need for two systems to exist. And therefore, every student has the potential to have infinite learning, relentless practice,
Yeah.
and all the opportunities in the world. How well you apply yourself
Yeah.
is the future that we have to think of. I'm sorry, it's a long
No,
answer.
absolutely,
to your
sir. I mean, absolutely. So relevant, and I think so in the context specific into this context.
So you
Thank
hire
you.
a
Yeah.
lot of people,
Yeah.
correct? And obviously the rate at which you are growing, you and the others will be hiring a lot of people.
Yeah.
What would you like to see in the students that you would like to hire going forward?
I can again relate to what you said that first is, sir, if I purely talk from a functional point of view, given that you are not only, in companies like us, you are not a consumer of AI only, you are an enabler of AI for other people to build their models and applications and all that thing. And again, depending upon which level of the like whole AI stack you are working in, but in general, a very strong foundation which India is always good at in mathematics, right? Data sciences, algorithms, statistics, probability, that flair of mathematics. Again, I'm saying in India, generally we are lucky to, generally have a very good flair of mathematics besides sciences is something which is very, very important. You should be enjoying mathematics, right? That is one part, I think. Second, sir, if I come to from a behavioral point of view, which is more important, I think while it has been said for any industry, especially for software development cycles for last 3 decades, but I think especially in the context of AI, where AI application can be any and every walk of life. That is how, because AI, you don't code the computer creates its own code. You just give its data. So no facet of life is now unaffected by AI. Given this, you will always have a context where you're dealing with maybe a industry expert who are expert into that industry. You are dealing with the analyst, you are dealing with the AI engineer, you are dealing with the ML engineer, you are dealing with the data scientist. So unless and until student, and I think this should be a part of the curriculum, which sometimes I don't see in engineering education, that you also are taught behavioral sciences of working in collaboration, of working as a team. And that's something, this is a challenge we all, so many times when we are running a large organization, we face that people are functionally fantastic. Challenge comes in how do you conduct meetings? How do people behave with each other? Whether it is the juniors, seniors, or peers. And I think we all know these challenges. These challenges sometimes become far bigger than the functional challenges. So I think very, very important that behaviorally people are trained to work as a team and collaborator. In AI era, that will be very, very important, sir. Third, sir, as you said, again, I would say, taking on the education and skills are supposed to go hand in hand. Again, in AI, students should not only have a PPT driven education, let me call it this way, the theoretical or book driven or PPT driven education. Can we also give them a hands on thing right from day one, right? And depending upon which stream of education you are, it does not mean only if you are into computer sciences or systems only, then AI is meant for you. Even if you are dealing with mechanical or electrical, or for that matter, you are a humanities or a commerce student, depending upon, because you will be either a creator of AI or you will be consumer of AI. So AI education has to be there. And depending upon your context, if you are able to create a tool, you have a hands-on experience, you have your college or school have got access to compute. Coming on again, what we are trying to do is making compute abundantly available in a cloud usage model, right? To every single college. You don't create your labs, you don't put your CapEx, I will give it in a cloud. The idea is students, besides learning, the theoretical part, which is important, but also have a hands-on experience in a very, very easy way, affordable way. I think these two things, the functional knowledge, mathematical engineering, second is the behavioral aspect, and third aspect is that they have a hands-on training, participating in hackathons, participating in open source, not remain theoretically, which possibly people like us used to be in 92s and all. I think that today's people, in case of AI, where everything is applied, not just academic, not just producing white papers, I think that will be important, sir.
I think this is very relevant in what you said, because in our school system, in class 8, you get divided in two parts. Those who like math, those who don't like math, right?
Yeah.
I don't think those who don't like math is valid anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct? Yeah. Number one. Number two, once upon a time, and our value system comes from humans understand humans.
Yep.
Then in the last 50 years, humans put a huge amount of effort to understand technology. Now in the last few years, technology has started understanding humans.
Right.
Now since humans and technology have found a seamless connection,
Yes.
I think it is time for humans to understand humans again.
Yes.
They have to find humans again.
Yes.
And I agree with you that in engineering education that's not done, but I'm very happy to tell you that in NIT University and NIT ecosystem, behavioral sciences are an integral part. Because we are destined to work with other human beings.
Exactly. Right.
And I don't think we are going to stare at screens throughout our life.
Yes.
In fact, screens will be freed up and we'll get time to spend with
By the
other
way, the
humans.
screens itself will start becoming and acting like humans. That is where we are reaching out to be.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, now people are thinking
AGI, right.
AI, robot, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So that's I think something very interesting. And then you said practical experience. So again, AI can make that happen because we used to earlier learn and then do.
Yeah.
You first attended a lecture
Right.
and then you went to the lab.
Yeah.
Now you can do doing and
Simultaneously.
learning.
Simultaneously.
Learning from doing rather
Exactly.
than learning and then doing. I think these are three very, very valid points.
Absolutely, sir.
I think something we should take away and
Exactly.
give this message to all the students as well.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So, thank you very much, sir. I think this is all we thought that we will be sharing with you.
Before that young lady comes and starts
telling us.
nudging her way towards us.
So, do we have a time for one or two questions, or okay? I mean, in case you want to raise any point, it need not be a question. It can be your opinion on whatever we were talking. 2 days back, as I said, me and sir had a quick conversation as to what we will be talking on stage, and we'll try to share some takeaways, and that's what we had to share. So if you have any question, we can talk. Otherwise, we will close this session. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry. I think there are 2 points. Yeah.
I'm P. Kishore. I worked in edtech industry for a long time. Now I manage a fund. So this question is to Mr. Thadani. You are running an university. You have been pioneer of education, technology, blend of that, and you have a fairly wide global exposure with respect to the industry. So how are you seeing this advent of AI happening in education, particularly in India vis-a-vis in the Western world? So could you just contrast the two, please?
Okay. See, I feel that India is a more tolerant system. You'll be surprised to hear this from me, correct? We have always complained of regulation, right? We have always complained of regulation. Actually, at this point of time, India is a very tolerant system for experiments in education. So in fact, I now say India is the largest education laboratory in the world. Obviously, you don't have any place where you have 30 boards and countless number of exams and countless number of competitive exams and countless number of ways by which you can learn, correct? And we have that rich data for us to study. And your data centers will process all that data to give us information. In that case, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to create a new paradigm in education. The blackboard chalk method. We should be the ones who should say we did away with it. That is an opportunity for us. Why did I say that? Because the rest of the world is still embroiled in a number of constraints. We work globally. We use a lot of AI for our internal use. But when we go to our customers, we go to our universities, they have their own problems. So a pharma customer, for example, would not allow AI to come in because he's so worried about privacy and security of his formula and his formulation. Microsoft can give him a certificate written in blood. They don't care. They say, if my $5 billion that I spent on this drug, if that gets stolen, I'm dead. So they're not using it. So we have 93 clients who are Fortune 1000 companies. Only two have permitted now with great difficulty use of AI on their data. External data everybody uses and does, but on their own data, usage of, which is where the real benefit of AI is, right? The organizational experience comes in. Only two have permitted, and two also very recently. The good news is 2 is greater than 0, right? And therefore 91 more to go. But 2 took very long to happen. 2 took 2 years. So I hope it will not take 93 years to reach 93. That's not where I'm coming from. What I'm coming from is, same is the problem with the educational system. Using abstract data, you do what you want. Using real data, you can't. You have a very, very big problem, the legal system. That way I find our country is much more tolerant. Now, that can also mean careless. That can also mean careless, the other side. But I think if responsible educational institutions and research labs can use that well, we have an opportunity to be one step ahead. One step ahead. That's how I would like to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So if you are an edtech entrepreneur, then I can tell you the sky is wide open for you. Go fly.
I think we have one more question.
Hi, my name is Pandan. I've been working mostly as a software engineer and recently in agentic AI development. So my question is that for a long time we have had this belief that the primary inhibitor in developing AI, and not just AI infrastructure, but developing AI models, etc., is data. Now, I understand for specific business or niche cases, we need the exact data to work upon, especially in terms of analysis. But a lot of problems, if we want to test out in terms of AI development itself, can be generated using AI itself, that is synthetic data. And I've worked on one such problem recently where I generated an entire synthetic data for like a user watch history or user activity. So, I mean, what is the take on that in terms of how much synthetic data can be developed to mimic something and develop a model before presenting it as a use case in the industry?
I think he will have a view. Strong.
No, you said it right, and I think see, I can tell you India is presenting a little contrarian picture. On one side, we say that we have 5,000 years old history, as a culture, and we have so many languages, 22 official, 300 plus languages. So we have a huge historical data across different languages, right from our manuscripts to the data which we have, the modern data. Second is the data which we all are generating day in and day out, because we are using a device called smartphone. Every single minute we are creating and consuming content. So that also is the data. And that is not only our general personal data, even across industries, be it patient records or education records or agriculture record, manufacturing record, because population is high, so everything is very high in India. So that way there should not be any dearth of data in India. There should not be any requirement of generating a synthetic data. But the contrary is also true, that if we have to create, and I'm talking in the context of India only, and that is the problem which the industry is trying to solve. The real India, which we in a cliche statement says, the real India does not reside in Indian and cities, it's actually reside in Bharat, which is the real India is Bharat, right? Which is the 90% population which is into the tier 2, tier 3 cities and villages. There people are not comfortable in English, for example. They will be very comfortable in their own native language. Number two, they may not be comfortable writing in native language. Writing in native language can be very tough on any screen, right? But if you're speaking to a device, it becomes very, very easy. So in India, the second problem which every startup which is creating a LLM in India is trying to solve is creating voice samples itself, right? And creating an AI which is fundamentally not converting trained in text and converting, like Mr. Sharma was giving the example of Bhashini, voice to text and then converting language and all. Fundamentally training on voice samples. I know many of the NGOs who are actually going across the country, taking voice samples, asking people just to speak, taking those samples and creating those data sets. India AI Mission is creating AI Kosh, for example, which is like a marketplace of data sets which people can just use, obviously anonymized data and all can be done. So I would say wherever data can be made available, like many of the manuscripts need to be, digitized and then being used and all this thing. Wherever the actual data is available, of course, that will be beneficial. That is representative of the actual society we are living in. But wherever the data is not available, you have to, and especially for things which are absolutely workflow driven, you have to go for synthetic data.
I'll just add one line to what he said. I'm referring to actual data. The first part you described very well. See, actual data, let's look at the mirror, each one of us. We have very scant regard for data. We are very irresponsible with data, right? We are not good at, and that's, I think, a cultural issue our country suffers from, our society suffers from, for good reasons. Everything has a good reason and a past to it. But I think that should change. The data which should be available, why is that not available? Why we have scant regard for that? Why don't we keep it properly? I think is an area that we should examine.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. Once again, I request Mr. Kali Mahapatra to please join us on stage and felicitate with token of respect. Big round applause और तालियां बजती रहनी चाहिए. Thank you for that insightful session.
I want to make one sentence. This is for your benefit. When you have people like him on the stage, you should not call it fireside chat. You should call it fire inside chat.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.